Hello, everyone. For real this time, because we did this before, but we weren't live yet, which is my fault. My name is Compang. Everyone calls me Penny. I'm the headmistress of Titterpig Academy, which just means it's my fault when everything breaks and inevitably burns to the ground. Yeah, I've been playing games for a while. Been GMing for most of the 12 or so years that I've been playing TTRPGs, so I'm the baby of the group somehow. And I'm joined here today with some wonderful professors from Titterpig Academy. So Mo, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I also think you're the baby of the group in general.
I am the youngest. Right. I'm younger than you by a year. 1 year, Mo. I'm not that young.
1 year. Hi, I'm Morgan Nuncio, or Mo for short. I am a they should pronoun. You find me over the net at Sammy Bezos. I do a lot of stuff, writing, actual plays, podcasting, etc. I've been playing since I was 15, so that's been 17 years now. 18, I don't know math. Math is hard, I don't do math. Anyways, but I actually only started recently GMing, maybe in the last 5 years. And I started with D&D, realized that was worse and not good for my brain, and I went to story games. That's me.
All right, Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Miskevich, he, him, and you can find me on TikTok at DSR Adam. I used to do a podcast, that's where the DSR comes from, that's why I'm Drink Spin Run in the comments here.
No, that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, it's all now, yeah. I've been GMing for 38 years, since I got a copy of the Mensa Red Box from a garage sale in 1985.
Right, I am Michael, improv GM pretty much everywhere. I was given in 1980 or 81 a pre-Redbox D&D from my cousin, so I have been GMing for 42 years.
And both of you
You're
have
the
been...
baby, I am the grandpa.
Both of you have been running games for longer than I've been alive.
Listen! Ow! My back. Just a minute. I gotta lay down, let it
That is
fix.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, it's good to have the experience here on the stream as we talk about how to get into GMing, which is why we're here today. Is to tell you guys, if you're interested in running games, which all of us have made the jump into at some point or another, how you want to go about that. And the first thing, if you take away one thing from this, the most important thing I want you to know is that when you first start GMing, you're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. You're gonna mess up, you're gonna forget rules, and a lot of times people aren't even gonna notice. You're gonna notice, and you're probably gonna beat yourself up about it, but please don't. Try not to. So yeah, any additional thoughts on you're gonna be bad, and that's okay.
Honestly, I would say that not only is it okay to make mistakes, but it's the best thing you could do is to make mistakes, because you're going to know them even if other people don't, and most people won't ever notice. Penny's absolutely right. Most people will never notice that you made a mistake. The thing is, if nobody noticed, it isn't a mistake, right? But you're going to remember that things could have been a little different, right? Which means that you're going to pay attention to the thing that you messed up, and you get it right next time. That's
like any true artist. True artist.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
GMing is a skill, and it's a skill that you've if you've never GM'd before, it's a skill you've never practiced, you've never built up, and so you're gonna mess up a lot. But the thing is, we all mess up.
Coming from both live performance and also teaching high school actors, one of the things that people will look at something like Critical Role or something. They'll just look at Matt Mercer and Critical Role, and they're going to ignore how much work everyone else there is doing, because he can be as good as he is because of everybody else. People are like, oh, I got to do that. Well, you don't have those players. But when people start looking at that, what they're not realizing is the amount of fun you have at the professional level, or in performance or anything like that. The high school actors who get up and do a show that you'd be they're having as much fun as people who are doing it professionally, sometimes more, because they can kind of throw themselves into it. So the comparison can be the death of joy sometimes.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And,
Like, that's a
and
very
when it
good
comes
point.
to GMing too, there's a lot of different styles of GMing. I think Michael and I actually just ran into this recently where we saw a TikTok where this person's like, I'm not good at improvisation, but like I love doing voices and running modules. I'm like, you know what? That if that worked for you, that worked for you. Like there's no wrong way to like get into it, honestly. So
And I can do voices, but Mo will attest to this. I rarely do. I will forget who's who. You don't have to do those to still be good.
yeah, unless it's gamers. Fuck gamers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is one of the things with like the popularity of actual play podcasts and shows like that. That new GMs think that they have to do good voices for every single one of their NPCs, and you simply don't. You can just say what the GM or the NPC is saying, and then describe how they say it, and the players will imagine it in their heads. That's probably the easiest way to do it, but you can change also the way that you say things, like the cadence of your voice, and that goes a long way to developing different personalities for NPCs. You don't have to be a professional voice actor to do this stuff.
I'm also the opinion sometimes like voices and accents have a tendency to overtake character and just become like it's the reason when they did Chernobyl they didn't want any of the really good British actors to speak in Russian or to speak with a Russian accent. What they found was they all became the same character very quickly because the accent overrode anything else.
Yeah, that's a very good point too. Is like when you're doing a voice, it's easy to just have that NPC be defined by what their voice is like, and then you forget what like their actual motivations and things like that are, which are far more important for like actually making a world feel alive. Is having characters that are believable, that have goals and things like that.
That have substance and depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. For me, what is it? I like doing voices, but mainly more like just cadence, tones, and pitches, just because it helps me like figure out like how they react to things in that sort of tone, or how they what did he say, push their selves to that. Like I think I used to have a voice for my mask game with Michael, but I don't know if I really do it anymore. I think it's just me being angry, honestly.
So I was in Monster Hearts with you recently, and I can say that your NPCs did feel different. They weren't like super far from your natural voice and the natural way you speak, but they were each like different enough, just by that much, that every character did feel unique. I think Adam can attest to that as well. He was also in that game.
Yeah, and I'd say that your use of cadence was really the strength there, because you did change the meter of your speech to match the person that was being personified, and I thought that more than anything went a long way to kind of tell us who we were talking to. You changed the tone of voice rather than an accent or did a voice or whatever. You changed the tone and the meter to kind of like get across what that person is like. I think that one of the biggest tools we have as game masters in general is the what it's like, right? Like RPGs aren't an is, right? Everything is entirely imaginary. So there is no, it's like this, right? Everything, or it is this. It's all like something, and so I think being able to summon a vocabulary that talks about things from like an experiential nature really goes a long way, and things like that make you feel a particular way are really great tools to develop in your toolbox. I think weird stuff about GMing, so I think about it all the time. and to me, like that, like what it's like is the soul of everything. Like, my biggest piece of GMing advice is figure out your game should feel like, and then do the things that make your game feel that way. That would make you feel that way in the game, right?
You did a good job of transitioning into our next point of like understanding the goals of your game. There's a good chance that when you first start GMing, you're going to want to GM the game you're most familiar with, and that makes sense, but it might not be the game that you're most comfortable running. It might run a lot different than you think before it would before you get behind the screen. So like when you're GMing, definitely try and take time to understand what the rules are trying to do. What sort of story that does the game want you to tell? Yeah. How are you supposed to facilitate this game?
And that's what I love about it, especially like Power by the Apocalypse games, because they have in the GM sections, they typically have principles of what you're supposed to push into the game. Those are sort of like the mantras of what the GM is trying to like touch upon as they're running the game. For Monster Hearts, it's like separate them, make it messy, keep pushing things, etc. While which is because it's a messy teenage monster game, like while you have in let's say Night Witches, it's deadly, it's it's rough, it's World War II, and you're Russian women flying outdated biplanes, like dropping bombs on Nazis. So
like you do.
Yeah,
and then a similar game in that same vein, using the same rule system with drastically different agendas, right? For the game master. Worldwide Wrestling, right? The stakes aren't the same, right? And understanding what the stakes are, no matter what game you're running, no matter what systems it is, like understanding how to frame the stakes, I think is a huge part of GMing well, and one of the most useful skills I've learned.
And I think Power by the Apocalypse in general is a really good. If you want to know anything about improvisational GMing, the first time I read PBTA, or actually Apocalypse World, I'm like, oh, this is kind of how I've been GMing for years. And one of his previous games, Dogs in the Vineyard, I'm like, oh, this is how I've been prepping for years. So Vincent Baker got in my head weirdly. I think he stole it from me. Did I write PBTA and not know it?
Is Vincent Faye?
Oh, I told him my name.
That you done goofed.
I'm in trouble.
Is Vincent actually just an alternate personality of Michael? Like that? Has anyone seen them in the same place at the same time? He's much more
productive than I am. They are much more productive than I am. But I think one of the things too, when people come into GMing, I mean, there's what the game does, what all this stuff does, but I think a lot of people take up the idea that they have to do kind of everything. It's like when people are like, "Oh, I'm writing a campaign," like, for the love of God, stop! Like two sessions, 3 sessions, and then let stuff build. So a lot of new GMs think they have to do Tolkien-esque amounts of work, and God, no.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to prep everything. You have to prep like a few ideas. You have to prep like a situation for like the first session, right? But you don't have to prep like a whole story for them to go on, because if you try and do that, one of two things is gonna happen. Is either the players are gonna do something unexpected, and you have to make stuff up, or they're gonna do something unexpected, and you have to figure out how to get them back on the story that you want them to be on, and neither one is gonna be fun for you, I feel like.
It's also a ton of work for stuff that's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah. If you're building like giant flowcharts and things like that for every possible decision they could make, you're probably doing too much work. I think GMing, even if you're not like a super improvisational GM, you have to have some level of improvisational skills, because unexpected things are going to happen. That's kind of just the nature of the medium that we're playing in.
I think though sometimes that what people are allowed to do that I don't think they always realize, and this happened with Nick Olex. Because we were playing D&D 5e with Nick, and I did a thing that broke open the mystery in a way he wasn't expecting, because I used the fact that I could throw some spell that let me talk to someone at a distance, and I had mimicry, so I did this thing to make someone, and he literally just goes, can we take 5 minutes? Which was cool, which was great. We laughed really hard. I'm like, I broke you. Sorry, I broke you. And then, when we came back, he took some time because he got thrown to the point where he was like, I want to think about this. And everyone gave him that time because it was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid to be like, I need a few minutes to think about things. Especially when you're new. You're going to encounter situations you didn't expect, and you're like, I don't know what to do right now. Give me a second. I have to come up with a new NPC name. I have to figure out how that affects things going on in the background and all that sort of stuff. And yeah,
but remember, one of your best resources is across the table from you, right? Like,
That's also
if you
true.
need a fact, there's no reason you can't go to your, unless it's something that has to remain a secret from them, you know, there's no reason you can't tap your players to help you come up with that thing, right? Like, they can do wonders for you.
Didn't y'all call me like a lazy GM, like lovingly, like while we're doing Session
It
Zero?
did. Yeah.
You know what you did? You know what you didn't do, Mo? You
What?
didn't get in the way of the plot,
Yeah.
Not once.
right?
Not once.
Yeah,
We
not
like,
for a second. And you, like, you didn't get in the way of our nonsense either. And that was a beautiful thing.
You're like,
No,
"Oh,
What
I
happens?
do this," I'm like,
What
"Oh my
happens
God."
next? You're the GM. Oh,
Oh, that's
that
right.
is kind of what it was like.
No.
Oh, I want to roll. I'm like, oh, that's right. We're playing games. Yes, go ahead.
Mo
You're-
had to like interject on our role playing and be like, "Oh yeah, there's mechanics in this game. I'm gonna need one of you to roll something."
yeah, that thing that happened a couple minutes ago. I've definitely done that in games. Yeah, that last thing. We'll just make a roll for the thing that just happened because it'll matter for these reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I think this fits in now. We should probably do that. I don't know, like maybe.
Yeah, I mean, in that Monster Hearts campaign that we are currently talking about, we had a group of players that all really liked to just take the spotlight and run with it whenever we were given it, and it was fantastic and wonderful, and made most jobs so much easier.
So you
But what
played
are the
Monster Hearts correctly, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes,
That's true. That's
yes.
absolutely how you play Monster Hearts. Not every game
Well, and I
runs
think-
super well that way, but that game definitely does.
And I think it was a game that was, if I'm not wrong, comprised more or less of people who typically GM, right? So, you know, we're all used to the things like giving each other, you know, time in the spotlight, right? Like deliberately stepping out of the spotlight to put someone back in. The thing with the last session, the thing with James and Juniper, right? Where I like one comes down the stairs. Oh, good! I need you to talk to this other the person you were just talking to, the person you have all this drama with.
Yeah, no,
like,
that was
introduced-
perfect. That was absolutely perfect.
In character, I just introduced a complication that forced two people that had just had a conflict back into conflict. It was beautiful.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have played that moment better. That was great. And then you walked out of the scene before they could respond.
You like threw the
Yeah,
lit
just set
match
it up
into
and
the
get out.
gasoline and just like walked
Yeah.
away. Like a cool guy doesn't look at explosions.
And cutting away from a scene, there's a thing in improv where it's better to cut early than too late.
Mhm.
And like finding a high point and then cutting is often a good idea. You can cut through the thing. If you have to come back, if you need to come back to the scene later on, you can. Especially if you're going to other people. But like, just
Yeah. And I've seen you do like I'm in your mouse game, Michael, and you do that. And sometimes I'm like, what? Oh, okay, we're getting cut now. Or like it was like, okay, well, I'll just eat those words for like the next part of the scene if there's another part of the scene or something. But like, yeah, because sometimes scenes can like, if you allow it, go on a little too long.
Yeah,
you're like-
absolutely.
and
I've
everybody's
done
like,
that a ton of times.
Are we there yet? Yeah. Are we there yet? Are we
Like-
doing it? Like.
And I get it. Like as a GM, like you see your players get into character and they're talking in character and they're having a great time, and so you don't want to interrupt them. But like if you're just waiting for a natural pause to cut things, you might never get there. And then
No.
it might just be them having a conversation in character for like an hour that day. And then they're all kind of burned out and like I don't know what to do next. So it's like if you get go ahead, Michael.
I was about to say one, because if people are looking to like for intro to GMing, I might kind of get like, how do y'all prep? Because if we want to look at someone coming into it, this is all the stuff we're talking about that happens during a game. But sometimes looking at like how you approach prepping for one.
Oh gosh. So so I prep for session 0 is just enough. So basically, like for example, I'll go over what I did for Monster Hearts because that's relevant because it just ended. I basically have a Google Docs that has like my introduction stuff. I have it pretty much laid out like I used to do my podcast. Introduction stuff with everybody's name, so I can get the pronouns. If they played this before, so I can get like an idea of like who they are. And then if it's a genre emulator like a PPCA game, I try to like replicate a question. Like if I'm running Escape from Dino Island, I ask like, "What's your favorite dinosaur?" If I'm like, and things like that. Like I'll try to get like,
Pause.
Oh yes.
What are your favorite dinosaurs?
Oh.
Triceratops.
I mean, I like
Triceratops is a dope dinosaur. I'm really feeling the Spinosaurus these days. Or, and this is a really awesome one just the way it looks, the Therizinosaurus.
I'm not familiar
So
with that
cool.
one.
Giant scythe-like claws, but it was a herbivore.
Oh, okay. I think I have seen it. I didn't
Okay,
remember the
yes,
name.
I've seen it.
I like the Stegosaurus a lot. I also like the Dimetrodon. Not technically a dinosaur. It's from the pre-dinosaur days. It's like the giant sail fin predator thing.
It's a
pretty
synapsid.
cool.
It's not. It's a synapsid, which
Yeah.
means it's more closely related to us.
That is correct.
dinosaur.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like
and mine's a pterodactyl or an ankylosaurus.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but you said that I had to know. I just
This-
want to know. I want to know your favorite dinosaurs.
Ankylosaurus is top tier, apparently. I
Yeah.
disagree. I think the Stegosaurus is better, but that's me.
Thank you, Cor. Where was I? So then I get into like, first off, lines of bells. For me, how I tell everybody, and I tell them all my videos, is that safety comes first, and then you can have fun. Because you can't have fun if there's not any safety involved. Because if someone gets hurt, that's not fun. So I always do like lines and bells. Wishes that they have for the mini arc. Like, the wishes mean like we try to get to them, but if we can't, then that happens. One word I found out yesterday that I'm going to be using a lot more is knives. We're like, it's like, these are things to hurt my character. Please use them.
So many
I
of
was like-
those could have come up in Monster Hearts if,
Right?
if we had
I was
asked
like-
for those. I
could have used that.
Yeah.
Can you give me the stabby,
Yeah.
please?
No, we were all making absolutely terrible choices in character, which makes sense for.
Was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect to make a dramatic.
I heard about that
messy
yesterday. and I was
teenage
like, oh
story,
my God, that's
but-
so good. I'm gonna, for future reference, I'm gonna keep it in the back of my head. And then
Well,
always for settings
Vanessa
and
said-
tone. Oh, go
That's
ahead.
what she's like. I hate gammers. I hate gammers and Maeve together. Please keep doing it.
For
Oh,
Sonic
that's
Cuts,
fantastic.
side tech Maeve is Nessa's character's little sister. And so her little sister's like dating, quote unquote. I don't know what it is. The first villain we ever fought.
Hey,
Goes to
I'm
his school.
practically part of the team now.
No!
If you guys don't know, on Sundays on Michael's stream, they run a masks game, and it's wonderful. I haven't caught a lot of it, but what I have caught has been great.
And then I have safety, and then we go through character creation together. Like I'll be explaining, like, okay, for PPTA, pretty much is like look through the playbook, see which one fits your mood. Everybody can only have one, so choose wisely, and then just go through and circle and check and answer the questions, and we'll get together in 10 minutes. And then I also could like explain like stats and all that other stuff, like conditions. And then once that's done, for PPTA, of course, there's like character connection stuff. So I have people introduce themselves and then offer character connection like strings for Monster Hearts, or like just when the team gets together, and like character just relationships and mask, those things. And then I talk about like the character principles. Like, by the way, this is what we're going to be hitting on for your characters. Like, be messy, say what honesty demands, be feral as your character. So just understand, keep that in mind as you're playing as your character. And then we do some world building, and I think that's it, if I remember correctly. But yeah,
We did a lot of world building for Monster Hearts.
Yeah.
But
it was good. It worked
it
really
was
well.
it
Like,
was really good because we weaved a very tangled web of relationships right from session 0, and
Yeah.
that's perfect for that kind of game. Now, not every game I think needs collaborative world building, but in Monster Hearts it absolutely helped so much.
and like in Michael's mask game, we actually use Microscope for our world building, which is like we've set Philly in we're playing in like 2017, but it's like 2022, 23 actually, because we don't know time. We're like,
We use
"Yeah,
some modern things. We're
TikTok."
finally like, we'll just make it today.
And
I-
so-
when I-
go ahead.
Oh, no, keep going.
Oh no, I was saying about the microscope, but we use a lot of that history to like help build and understand like the idea of like how superheroes are. So we didn't take the typical like with mass they have like the golden genre or the golden era, the silver, the bronze, etc. We were just like, yeets, we're gonna be placed in Philly, and we're gonna have this history of like how superhero in this happened. There's a massive like astral rift. Things come out of it occasionally. They're plants mostly, and yeah, That's how life is here.
Go ahead.
All right, so I have a question for you all, and that is, knowing what you know now, right? Let's say you can go back in time, to the point when you never ran a game before, but you know all of the stuff that you know now. You have all the perspective, you have all of the knowledge that you have. How do you go about deciding what you're going to run first? What is it? How do you get ready for it? You know, what tools do you need to make that happen?
Do you mean by system or something?
Yeah, system, just game. Like that's what this is about, right? This is intro to GMing, right? Let's say you needed to do it for the first time all over again. Like, what advice would you give yourself? How would you put it together?
Play a lot of games.
No. And what's the game that interests you and your group? Like when I'm running something, I usually pitch, here are a bunch of possibilities. Which one that I'm interested in? Which ones are you interested in?
I kind of do a similar thing, and I think a big point here is to run what you're excited about. You're gonna learn the rules better if you're excited about this game. If you think this game's really cool, you're going to
also do a better job of getting other people excited if you yourself are excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, it's really hard to hype somebody up for something that you don't actually care about.
Yeah, I know some people have the problem of players that only want to play one game, but if you're excited enough, and your players are a little bit open-minded, they will definitely be willing to at least try something else. My players have played pretty much whatever I throw at them because I run the games, and they're like, the rules don't actually matter that much to me. And I'm like, that's weird to me because I'm a giant nerd. But I'm glad you play whatever I'm excited about, because that gets you guys excited to play too.
I have a Wednesday night group that we kind of have this long-standing tradition that we never play the same game, right? Like, we're never going to go back and revisit a game. Although I've heard 2 of the games that I've run, they very much want to go back and revisit those games. That's so rare for us, right? That was, I felt like a huge compliment, but like, you know, because it's against the rules of the group, you know? But they had so much fun with those specific systems. Anyway, I think if I were to go back and choose something to start all over with, I think I want to choose something that doesn't have a ton of rules. You know, like back in the day, you know, I started with, like I said, I started with, or I did say this, I started with the Mensa Red Box, which doesn't have a lot of rules. But then I quickly moved into other games that did, like the Palladium games, especially like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, hugely foundational to me. And that game has so many messy rules that I wouldn't even come near it, you know, that early in my GMing career, if you will, as I did, you know, the first time around. So I'd look for something like maybe like Mouse Ritter, you know, something that's nice and stripped down, real easy to learn, real easy to teach, not a lot of moving parts to keep track of, or a PBTA game, you know, for the same reasons. There's not a lot of rules. There's not a lot of moving parts. They're all easy to keep track of, you know. That's kind of that's what I'm looking for in a game anyway.
That's kind of what I look for in a game as well. But I think that like there are definitely players out there that like very crunchy games that like a lot of moving parts and stuff like that. And I think for that, it's like if you're gonna run a complex game for the first time, make it a game that you've played before. I think that's gonna make it so much easier because you're familiar with how things are, at least on the other side. I think go ahead, Michael.
But along with that goes, I think for a lot of people though, the GM is the person bringing the new game to the players. So a lot of times GMs, there's a lot of people who are interested in doing things they haven't played before. But I think they're the GM giving themselves the permission, and someone just mentioned Aces and Eights. Some gives themselves the permission to go, okay, like Aces and Eights was a complex game. The first time we're gonna play a little bit, learn, like get used to using the skills and such, and have like one shootout, because shootouts are really complicated. We are not going to worry about bar brawls because those work on a different system. We're not going to worry about chase scenes because that's a different system. And you can actually just break it down and go, tonight we're going to do, I want to play with these aspects of the system so we all get used to it. And when I take more complex systems, I break them down for players. Like we're just doing these things. I think a lot of times people feel like they have to start with it all. Instead, they can just go, no, we're going to just play with these little bits tonight, and we'll get to the rest of it later.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely good advice for more complex games. It's like you take like the base mechanic, if there is a base mechanic, and definitely learn that, and then maybe like one other more specific thing and throw that into the session. And then as you keep going, you just work in more and more of the more complex mechanics, and then you don't have to know all of the rules all at once, right? Because that's a trap that a lot of new GMs fall into, is thinking that they need to know everything before they start running a game, and you absolutely don't. Like we said at the beginning, you're gonna mess up, and even if you memorize all the rules, you're probably gonna forget in the moment how they work, and you're either gonna have to look it up, or more likely you're just gonna have to make a call and then look it up later. And if you make the wrong call and you run it wrong the first time, that's probably not the end of the world. Most likely the players aren't gonna care. The important part is that they have fun and that you have fun.
I don't know a GM that doesn't routinely make mistakes, right? And then own up to them, and you keep going in the moment with ruling that makes sense, and we come back later on to if we need to straighten out those rules, we'll do it like in between sessions or something like that. And frankly, by this point, I gotta say, I think that's kind of the norm in the community. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just like all the cool people I play with do things that way. But
yeah. I mean,
that seems to be the way it works, because it makes sense. Like, let's be honest, let's be genuine, let's be authentic with each other. We all understand we're fallible. Everybody understands that, and we can move forward. Nobody is expecting, an actual play grade performance the first time you GM, unless you're putting that onus on yourself, which is a completely different set of problems.
Yeah, I think holding yourself to an impossibly high standard when you start GMing is unfortunately probably the norm. You probably think, if you've never GM'd, you probably think that your GM is doing such a great job. They're probably making mistakes left and right. But you don't always notice it from the player side, and like you said, it's really easy to just make a call in the moment and then look the rules up later, rather than pausing the session in order to look up how that specific interaction is supposed to play out. And then you can just message the group chat or something later and be like, how this actually works is this way, so next time we're gonna do it right. So yeah, that's I forgot where I was going with that.
Kind of sounded like you might have gotten there, but
yeah. I don't know.
I forgot the question. What was the question again?
I don't know if there was a question. I think
it wasn't really a question. It was
just
just a continuation of a conversation.
Okay, then I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm just vibing.
Mo's here. We're good.
I'm here. I was lost and y'all talked, and y'all wait, and then I came back. I was like, wait, what? What's
wait a
going
minute.
on?
I'm in this conversation too.
Yeah, I'm here as well.
Yeah.
I think one thing I will bring up though is that if you're new to GMing, definitely if there's things available, either reading how to plays or listening to something, because if you've only played a certain game your whole life, the most popular one, Dungeons and Dragons, and you're trying okay, cool, I want to run a game, but D&D seems really intimidating, so I'm gonna try to run this other game, like Stew Pot, which is hold on. that's a GM-less game. You should change course.
I still GM a GM-less game because none of you can be trusted.
I was like, wait, hold on. Something like Lasers and Feelings. You can't run Lasers and Feelings like a D&D game. That's just not how they run. So definitely trying to see if you can find some inspiration if you love the concept of that game, but you want to run a game, but you're like, ooh, that D&D may be a little too much for me, but I want to try something else first. Please note that not all games run like the game that you know. So either looking for inspiration, listening to a podcast, watching a how-to, finding one of our older TikToks that we actually talked about how to run games in a certain systems before.
Did you guys do that? That was before I came around to
Yeah,
start
I
getting
actually did,
content.
like,
So
Beggar teachings, yeah, is what we called them, or
Beggar
back
teach.
in-
Yeah.
Beggar
Yeah.
teach, yeah.
yeah, that was
And,
not a thing I was ever part of. That was before my time.
Yeah. Just to get like an idea of how they run, because like, yeah, you can try to run Lasers and Feelings as like a D&D. It's not gonna work though.
If you run a lot of games like D&D, it's probably not gonna work. D&D is like
It's
a
not gonna
very
be a fun time,
specific
y'all.
kind of game. Like you can run Pathfinder like D&D, you can run 13th Age like D&D, and other games that are pretty much D&D like D&D.
I don't know why my PBTA game didn't work too well, like running it like D&D.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. That is something that I do when I get a new game and I'm excited about it and I want to figure out how it runs. I will look up like an actual play for it. A lot of the time it will be on the One Shot Podcast Network because they run so many games there and it's great.
It's a good source. It's a good well of information over there.
Also, Mo did an episode of that, and I'm never gonna stop saying it.
I was not gonna bring it up.
I'm always going to bring it. It had Brennan Lee Mulligan in it. You played Wander Home. But yeah, I think inspiration and like, and it kind of goes back to the point of understanding what the game is trying to do. You can learn a lot about that from the rules, but you're gonna learn a lot more by actually seeing other people play the game, especially the way that it's actually meant to be played, or if they mess up and they're like, actually this doesn't work that well that way, you're gonna know not to play it that way.
Like, I joined a mask game once for One Shot where the guy never ran a PBTA game before, let alone mask. And as much as I try to help out from as a player perspective, I felt like at one point I was almost nearly running the game myself. And then also on top of that, I felt like he was like running it as like D&D.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
I mean, that's the thing, right? If you're used to one type of game, when you go to other games, you're going to try and find, you're like unintentionally, you're going to naturally try and find the similarities rather than the differences. And that's going to lead you into a lot of bad habits of running everything the same, even if it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know there's at least one. People told me there's at least one actual play. Well, there's going to be more than this, but like Friends at the Table, where someone did tech noir, but did not they never really kind of grasped how it worked. So people who watched it would not necessarily come away with a better idea of how that particular game works.
I also heard like Critical Role folks did Monster Hearts, and I heard it was not good, but like I didn't watch it.
Avery's Twitter thread was basically like oh buddy, listen, it was a good hustle. It was a good hunt. It was like, listen, I love that they did it, and here's
my notes.
Like, yeah, they're just going like, look, you tried. It was, they were very nice about it.
Adam, it looks like you have something to say.
I don't know that I do. I
Okay.
think that it's really amazing how many resources there are out there now for people to learn how to play games. In addition to actual plays, a lot of game companies will even like do short videos that explain core components of their game. Those can be amazing resources. I gotta say, like, as one of the old men of the group, I did have to walk uphill both ways to play games, but that I didn't learn from other people. That just wasn't a resource that I had. I didn't know older kids, cousins who taught me how to play games. Just Michael's cousin gives me games. Apparently, that's all that happened. Sorry,
My cousin just gave me the game.
Yeah, that was pre-show nonsense that I was lying about. So, like when I was getting started, I had no examples, no models of how to do this beyond, like the text in the actual game books, the examples of play. And honestly, I think Mo recommended reading those. Yes, if that's all you got, because I think in a lot of cases they don't do justice to the actual like moving parts of the game. I think a lot of times designers get caught up on like one or two minutia of the game rather than like really getting across what the game should feel like when it's being run. And I'm going to keep coming back to that. For me, gaming is all about what is about feeling, right? It's about how do you create the feeling that this game should evoke, right? And I don't think that especially like I admit I play a lot of old school games. And at least in old school circles and sometimes in newer school circles too, like they don't do a good job of telling you what the game should feel like, if that makes sense.
I think in some respects though, and this is, I mean, having come up the same, like we played a ton of stuff. One of the benefits and the joys of having done that when we were little kids is you don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like you screw it up, you get stuff wrong. Like that enthusiasm where if you're too worried about, like, I mean, it's the improv thing too, that when you're teaching someone improv, they're always looking for what is the, like, oh my god, well, what's the right thing to say? And there's not a right thing to say. There's better things and there's worse things, but you learn by doing it and jumping in. And one of the things about theater and performance in general is that I think a lot of people don't have experience with is you get used to the process of creation, because a lot of people think creativity is this magical thing that I even saw a long thing on Twitter going like the Dungeon 23 thing. That's not how it works. I'm like, you don't know a damn thing. It's a process, and the thing is that process is fun even when you're like not getting it right, so to speak, because it doesn't matter about getting it right. It's like, are you having fun? You can then go back and go, oh, do we want to alter? Do we want to change? But you can throw yourself in and not have to worry about like hitting it the exact way it was done, because you'll form your own play culture, but you'll also get to know the game better, and it'll change over time because you may come closer to how the game is written. You may end up doing some of your own stuff with it. But, and then I'll go back on everything I said, is though sometimes people don't enjoy certain games because they are approaching them the wrong way, but that's one of those things a little harder to find out. But if you just approach it
I think
we're gonna have fun, I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why like playing a lot of different style of games and running a lot of different style of games is like important if you're trying to run games and just like learn about games at all in this hobby. Is like there's so many different styles of play that tell so many different stories and things like that. That if you're only approaching like you're limiting yourself by approaching all of them the same way. So playing more games is going to expose you to more ideas and more ways to play and more stories that you can tell. And the more you do it, the easier it is to learn new games and to learn to run new games.
Yeah. And going off that too is even if it's the same genre of a game, like a sci-fi game, running it in one system is completely different from running it in a different system. Like it just really depends, because that's how rules are written. Like the rules of this certain game is more narrative and collaborative building, while the rules in this game is like more like I must figure out the combat system of like the grids that go to XYZ and like how many clicks am I away from the other ship and how big is it, and like can I get into my proton ranges or
God, traveler? Yeah, it's good. I've been running Torchbearer, right? And Torchbearer, kind of does. I mean, it does the dungeon thing, right? But it is in no way. You cannot approach that game the same way you would Dungeons and Dragons. If you do, your players are going to be dead in like 5 seconds. Like it's really, it can be that punishing. But if you approach it from the vein that Torchbearer wants to be approached from, as a more narrative system, it's a thing of beauty. That could really be a ton of fun for everybody involved.
Yeah. Speaking of dungeons, though, I think one of the things that new players tend to gravitate to, especially because if they're coming from Dungeons and Dragons, is pre-written adventures. Now, I have no experience running a pre-written adventure. I've never done it in my life, but I think Adam and Michael may have done that at some point in their lives, if they want to talk about that.
I will say, I think the one time I remember distinctly is I got bamboozled into running a game for kids, and it was a pre-written adventure.
I usually
like you didn't like leap at that opportunity.
No, so like okay, so
kids are amazing, man.
No,
like,
so side tangent. So I was my friend has like a 10-year-old. I think he was 10 at the time, 10 or 11, and he apparently got the D&D box set. Like and she was like, oh, he wants me to run it for him. but I don't know how to run games. You want to come over and just like teach me how to run games? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like I'll come over and you can. She's like, I'll get you lunch. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. As soon as I walk in, I see her like in the kitchen in front of me, but the living room's like right here, and there's like an open walkway. I'm like, oh hey, how's it going? And I'll hear from the side, like, yeah, she's here, we can play. I'm like, what? So apparently, so I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to read this. They were so excited to play this. I was like, let me just read this adventure real quick. I don't know what I'm doing yet.
I think modules can be really good for people starting. I want to preface. I took a glance through what the Waterdeep Dragon heist. I just looked at the table of contents and went, "Fuck this," and then just because I was curious to think. But like, dungeons are good for newer players or for newer GMs. One, you get to learn the combat, but it's also place to place. It limits the play space in a way where they don't have to worry about kind of everything. So I think it takes some of the load off. It lets them kind of concentrate on getting the rules and such. I think I don't like a lot of. There's certain ones that like Alien. I think has incredible pre-written campaigns. Like the cinematic campaigns are great. I'm actually using one right now for RuneQuest, which is essentially like the fall of the particular clan you're a part of. It's like these 6 events that take place over a series of seasons that but still leaves a whole lot open. So these are things that are going to be happening while we're doing a lot of other stuff because it gives a lot of freedom and doesn't kind of lock us into things. I think pre-written adventures can be good because they give you something. I think there's a lot of poorly written ones.
Yeah. And going off pre-written adventures, as someone who's written like scenarios and pre-written adventures, hello. Like for Junksha, for example, Junksha Blood in the Banquet Hall, I've written a scenario for that, and it's basically taking a twist on like the 1920s Chinese immigrant family that are dealing with Junksha. Instead, you're a mixed Mexican family in the 1980s dealing with Cinco de Mayo, and you're dealing with La Lechuza. It's upside down, but yes.
It's also backwards, so
it is not backwards on stream.
Yeah, it's mirrored on stream. So, and then also for like kids on bikes, I wrote a scenario for that where instead of you being kids on bikes in the 1980s, you're teenagers in college in the 1980s in a weird Texas town called Austin, and you got weird shit, and there's rules for playing beer pong, and yeah.
It's a new take on Keep Austin Weird.
Yeah, that's how you do it. So it really it gives a different life to the game that you currently have, and if you're not feeling like the main setting, for example, like let's say you're not feeling like D&D itself, but you want to play D&D as like Ravenloft, right? You can go like gothic horror instead of like medieval fantasy. I think it's medieval gothic horror. I don't know. I've never played Ravenclaw, so
I can't help
I played
you
Von
here.
Strahd. So...
So I gotta say, I haven't read any of the 5th edition adventure stuff that I thought was worth my time.
Like, how did they do a heist in a game that's not good for heists? Oh, this looks terrible.
Everything
Play a different game. That's how.
Everything is so poorly designed. Everything is just a freaking railroad. Like it's all pathetically bad. Like everything is pathetically bad, and I cannot deal. That having been said, I absolutely fucking love running modules, and I will run, old school D&D modules all day, any day. Particularly, and the thing is they're not all good, right? It's not all good stuff, I would say, like, honestly, the absolute best module ever written by any like D&D adjacent anything is medication alarm. Is module B10, which was written by TSR UK. It's Night's Dark Terror, and the reason that it's so damn good is it actually gets to like what I think is good D&D play, which I think is really hard to do in a module. It's a hex crawl that has events that happen when you go places that further a plot, and there are dungeons, sure, and there's also other stuff happening, and it just puts it's not overwhelming at all in the amount of content it presents. It like really takes steps to get you to telling a cool story, which I think is really nice and incredibly rare when it came out. And I want to say like 81 or 82. It was a BX era module. So and it was designed by TSR UK. Basically anything TSR UK touches is fantastic.
Yeah. So like when you're looking at modules, what is it that you look for that makes it a good module versus like a bad module for new GMs out there? Like what should they be looking for in a module?
You know what? Almost none of them do well. Very few of them actually set it up for use in play. So many of them it's great when you're reading through and you're like, okay, this will be cool. Okay, yeah, this like the alien modules do this too. And then you're like, all right, you go into crap. Then you got to go through and find stuff. Like, I would love it if they did more for set it up more so it's easier in play.
Adam's thinking something. Hold on.
So
I know some of the OSR stuff's been doing that.
Yeah, Old School Essentials designs their stuff incredibly well. Each page. This is again by my good buddy Don Stroud. I use my old podcasting partner from back in the day. But like here on this page, this is what's on this page. Here's the map for it, right? That's perfect. Like they don't want you to get too. Every page is like that. If you need map reference, it's right there. There are a couple of other folks who have done this kind of information design. Some of them are great people, some of them aren't. And I think, unfortunately, some of those bad people have, like made some of the best examples of it.
I hate when bad people make cool things. That's like the worst thing. It's so frustrating.
It's like, how dare you?
Right?
No.
Like, how dare you make a cool thing if you're gonna be a bad person? Like, you should just make shitty stuff so no one pays attention to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so on the opposite side of what you said, I'm not gonna pull it out right now because it's somewhere in the dark. But like, there was a really cool the Burning Ruin, which was a RuneQuest adventure that's packed with lore, that's got all this great like flavor and history and all this kind of stuff. Like, you open up the map, and if I've got the map like here, it's like, oh, here's like 8. 8 is up here. Cool, like this is the gate you come into, and then like 23, 17, 84, 9 is like somewhere over here. It's like when you're trying to find stuff, it's impossible. You're looking at the damn map going, well, you could just put the numbers together. You could have done that. Like the numbers all could have been together, but for some reason,
them in
no.
any logical order at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Past that, I have not run a module, so I don't have any other advice for that.
I wasn't counting on you for module advice, Mo, if I'm being completely honest. I know you better than that.
And there's a lot of game design doesn't actually. There's a lot of game design where it doesn't make sense, and one of the reasons I don't use modules much is because what we do is so dependent. What I do is usually so dependent on the individual characters that like you probably can't drop them into unless you all like the 6 seasons in Sartar for RuneQuest. It's like you are coming of age in this clan, and you're part of the Haribon clan, and there's all this other stuff. So when they came into it, like it was all formed around being a part of this group.
Yeah, no, I mean that's usually how I run games as well. Is like I'm kind of imagining it like it's a TV show and the PCs are the main characters, and what they're doing is the plot. So I kind of just prep like a starting situation for them to be in, so they can just jump right into whatever the action is in that game. It could be combat, it could be some sort of like courtroom drama thing. It could be whatever is going on that's important in that game. But they get to, being able to roll dice and to interact with the mechanics pretty early on, and things just start happening. And as play goes on, I just try and keep in mind like what are the other people involved in this. Like the PCs are going, like the players are going to make decisions for the PCs. I have to make decisions for everyone else around, and usually that's a handful of people or maybe some factions, and so using a module in those settings doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense unless it's something like Mo has written, which is more of shifting the setting. Yeah, it's more of shifting the setting slightly while keeping similar mechanics.
I think the only thing I have for Junction is like instead of like you have rice but also have tortillas because Mexican food like I think I traded out noodles for tortillas. But another thing, we're talking about improv earlier, and I forgot to bring this up. Improv for gamers, which is a really good essential if you are just playing in general, but also for DMing. It has great tools to use and different sort of warm-ups and I forgot what the rest of the things are called because improv stuff.
A lot of it's
Mikel.
like improvisational. A lot of it's like it's by Karen 12s. A lot of it is improvisational formats, like warm-ups, things along those lines.
Yeah, and if you're not following Karen 12s, go do that. She's wonderful. Like her stuff
Yes.
is great. She's a lot of fun.
And if you can ever catch an improv class that she's running at a con, yes.
Or
Michael,
that I'm
do
running
you
at
also-
Gen Con.
I was gonna say, aren't you running my
Or
my
yeah, the
Yeah.
improv GM running an improv class.
The nice thing was, I got approached to do some videos for improv for gamers. The nice thing is, the improv for gamers stuff is much more short form stuff. The stuff that I do is much more long form. So we don't overlap. I mean, some of the warm ups to start off with, yes, but then the stuff we would do, I think, is quite a bit different.
I mean, that's really cool, right? Because you get the two different styles of improv, two different skill sets. If you're able to attend both of those classes at cons and stuff, and obviously, improv skills are helpful when you're playing RPGs, whether it's on the player side or the GM side. But probably more on the GM side. I've never done improv. I'm just kind of talking here. I don't know.
Honestly, for players, the reason the biggest APs are as big as they are not the GMs.
Mm-hmm.
The players do a huge amount to make that stuff work. Because if I'm running a game with a bunch of improvisers, they do so much work because they know how to, one, make strong decisions. They know how to commit to them. They know how to edit scenes. They know how to basically the chain of consequences that you learn to kind of build. The players will go after things in ways that a lot of players get a little gun shy about doing. They will help make a lot of things happen.
Yeah, I've noticed a big difference between playing just with people who are content creators and not necessarily people who have trained improv skills and people who aren't. And that's one of the big things is when you're used to recording yourself for the internet, you're not afraid to take the spotlight and just kind of run with it. And that makes a big difference in games and how the stories develop.
Yes. Where I'm trying to think of if there's more to that, or or did I just interject about things? I think I just interjected, honestly. Or if you're like me and you started LARPing right before you started actually doing tabletop games, a month before, yeah.
That's okay. I didn't play tabletop games until I was legally an adult. I was 19, and that was D&D 3.5, and I hated it. So I almost immediately tried to switch to other games and had trouble convincing people to play a new game with me, especially when I didn't know the rules very well.
I had a couple years away from RPGs just because of my first year teaching, college, the amount of theater and other stuff. I just got busy, and then when I came back to it, people were describing the 3.5 characters. I'm like, I have no interest. And then I realized D&D was never our main game. It was one of them, but the stuff it does is not what I'm interested in anymore.
Yeah.
So the stuff it does is stuff that I'm interested in. I'm just not interested in the way D&D does it. But no shade on D&D there. Just all of it. I'm far happier playing a Mork Borg or OSE or Dungeon Crawl Classics. Those games are much more interesting, to me, because mechanically they're different. They do the thing I want a dungeon game to do, or Torchbearer, right? Go in a completely different direction with similar content.
I appreciate Torchbearer so much, but I would get so bored running it or playing it. I wish I'm looking going, it's so well put together, and I really enjoy. I really appreciate it, but I would not have fun.
Yeah, I know you
for very
feel
long.
similarly about Blades in the Dark as well, which is a wonderfully written game, a wonderfully put together game. But I know that
Well, the fiction of Blades in the Dark, I'm totally into and would enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't find it interesting to GM, and that's very much a personal thing.
yeah, it's, like,
Yeah.
it's that doesn't make it a bad game. I think. I don't know if everyone here has played Blades in the Dark. I played it once, and it was a great time. I do want to run a Forged in the Dark game at some point. I think I would like it quite a bit.
I don't think I would be able to run Force in the Dark as much as I like well versed with D&D, like with PTA. Like I just had this conversation yesterday because someone was razzing me about like Blades in the Dark being their favorite
PBTA game?
PBTA game.
Someone said that
And I was
to
like,
you?
look,
I'm shocked.
yeah, they razzed me. How dare they? So like, it's like they're cousins. They have the similar like lineage of like narrative games.
But they're not the same.
They're not the same at all. No, Blades has so
Which
many
means
more
if they
moving parts.
date, it's fine.
Yeah, because the
What?
kids will come out.
I'm gonna get another Coke. I'll be right back.
What did he say? What did he say?
That's a hell of a note to walk away on.
What did he say? I only heard like a little bit.
He said that they're
So it's
cousins,
okay for
but
them
they're
to
not
date.
that close. So if they date, it's fine. I just want to point out it was one of the white people who said that, and not me or Mo.
Excuse me, that's my heritage. Our people keep ourselves close.
You're in Florida, right?
My extended family is all Michigan. It's essentially the south of the north.
I'm.
Depends where in
and I are
Michigan,
both
but
in
I'm
Michigan
from
right
I'm from
now.
northern Michigan, so I get it.
Yeah.
But my
This
dad,
was
my
like
dad pound.
southwestern Michigan.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
I'm from West Michigan, which is pretty much just super far east Chicago, until you get up to Grand Rapids. In which case, it's like whoa, it's all ope all the time.
You know Dowagiac?
Yeah.
My whole family's, pretty much my whole family's in that area. Sister Lakes and Dowagiac area.
Mm-hmm.
Mo was lost. Mo's the
Basically-
one person
basically
who has
Mo-
no idea what we're
Mo-
talking about.
When
Now, where
hunting
y'all on
season
the
starts, when hunting season starts, my cousin's school shut down.
Oh.
Yeah, we get where I'm from. We get the opening day of deer season off every single year.
I
That
have been in a
doesn't matter.
room where I can answer how many deer heads and fox skins would be too much for a room, because I think they had the most possible in that room.
Yeah.
Like logistically, there just wasn't room for any more.
And all the deer look confused, which seems cruel. They're all just like, you don't have to mount them like that.
But Dowagiac is one of those few places that actually leans into the association with Indiana of Michiana, right? Like
Oh yeah, mhm.
most Michigan places, like if you get to like
Mich-
Schoolcraft or
Mishawaka?
you know,
We are
Well, I live
well
in Goshen.
off the rails
Off-
here, so
yeah,
I'm
we're off
gonna
rails.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask the viewers if they have any questions for us about getting into GM.
Well, y'all keep talking about the North, and I'm just like,
Yeah. We had a question here on the TikTok. Will Kobold Press Project Black Flag become a new Pathfinder? I don't know if that's in any of our wheelhouses.
I think
No idea.
Homebrew City, Kyle, he actually read through it and he said it felt very D&D esque.
It felt
It's
like
just
a
fifth
slightly
edition.
updated
Again,
3.0.
it's just 5th edition again. It's
Yeah,
just
Put a step to the
it's
side.
like
very
yeah,
small
it's-
change from 5th edition, like less than Pathfinder.
But here's the
It's
thing.
5th edition, but
Cobalt
here.
Press is not an innovative creator, right? They do not innovate. They make stuff for someone else's game. That's
Yeah,
where they
it
came
makes
from.
sense
That's
that
what they've
their
always done. So of course they're just taking someone else's game, slapping a new label on it, and putting it out there because that's all they need to do. They don't need to do more than that. They don't need to innovate. They don't
Yeah,
exist to
and
do
it
that. They exist
literally-
to provide a game within a specific.
It doesn't make sense for
You
their
know,
Jordan-
business plan to do a hugely innovative game, right?
No,
It makes sense.
no.
to
Jordan
make
just called it
5th edition, like,
5.1.
It's 5.1.
That's generous.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's like 5.05. It's
Like,
like, yeah,
I'm not-
That's fine for the people who want that. Let them
Yeah.
have that. There's no reason. For it
Listen,
not
if it
to
means
exist.
that people can play a game they like without supporting Wizards of the Coast, that's a good thing, in my
Well, they need their
opinion.
modules and stuff to work for it. You don't want to create something that invalidates the catalog you built up.
Yeah,
Oh, 'cause
absolutely.
they have
Like
a
I
lot
said,
of
it doesn't
stuff,
make
yeah.
doesn't make sense.
There is
for
a
them to make
side
something
note to the
different.
whole like five ESRD being on Creative Commons now, and that is that the entirety of the old school community doesn't need to use the SRD one or the OGL 1.0 anymore. We just don't, because we can get the same thing out of the 5th edition rules. So that, to me, that's fantastic, because that's just saying like, that's a consequence that I don't think a lot of people have touched on, of that whole OGL thing. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So I'll shut up.
I don't play games that are built off the OGL, so I didn't follow it that much, if I'm being completely honest.
I play a lot of them, but it's the legal groundwork for a lot of great games. Dungeon Crawl Classics uses the OGL.
Yeah, absolutely.
Old School Essentials does.
Current RuneQuest is fairly similar. Well, to old school, to the because the original BRP was essentially old school D&D with skills, and they've returned to that for the current RuneQuest.
I'm a huge RuneQuest fan. I've read every edition, and it's it was a neat. RuneQuest itself was a unique opportunity, because the idea was someone came to Greg Stafford and said, "Here, write." Was it Greg Stafford? No. Anyway, it said, "Hey, do D&D, but it can't work like D&D. It has to do something. It has to work completely differently," because there were already rumblings about the rights, way back then. So
I have nothing to add.
I have nothing to add either. Does anyone have any final thoughts on being a GM for the first time, getting behind the screen?
My big thing is don't worry about getting it right. Take it in small pieces. You don't have to have everything ready to go. If you just want to work on specific parts of it over a session or two, do that and approach it the same way I did when I was a child, when I was 6 years old, and we screwed up so many of the rules and nobody cared. We played, we had fun. We didn't let the idea of perfection ruin the good time we were having.
Yeah, I think one of the things you can look at too is if you just look at the players' character sheets, you'll know what the characters, what the players are going to want to do to some degree, and you could just look up the rules for that stuff.
And bars lift gates.
Yeah. Read the GM section, Jordan says, which we did cover. I think Mo talked about that, especially in PBTA games, which are genre emulators, so they... I think they need that a bit more to tell you how to run the game correctly in order to tell the story that that game is trying to tell.
I almost feel like Jordan might have been saying that tongue in cheek, because there are a lot of games out there that have absolutely terrible, GM sections.
True.
And I think the bulk of those are not in the narrative game space. I think the bulk of those are on this shelf, not that shelf. You know what I'm saying? It's the more like trad game shelf over on this side of the room. Yeah, I don't feel like I feel like a lot of people have really bad advice.
I'd also say don't overwhelm yourself with writing everything, and keep game safety in mind. First and foremost, you in the camera that's watching this, because safety matters. Your
Be
player
safe
safety
and
matters.
have fun in that order. Just read Apocalypse World. I mean, it's full of great GM advice. Read Apocalypse World. Do it.
That's all I got. Anybody got any questions before we roll off? But yeah, I got a question for y'all. What is a game that you haven't ran yet but you're interested in running?
Into the Odd. I picked up recently, and I've never run an OSR NSR game before, but I want to. They seem kind of neat. I'm usually more of a narrative game. Yeah,
I'm listening. I'm looking at my shelves.
Right.
Right. And so I picked up Into the Odd recently, and it's a beautiful book. It's a super interesting game. It's a very different style than what I'm used to, which is one of the reasons I want to run it. Is to expose myself to running different game styles, which can help build up a lot of GM skills and just be fun. And I think it's really fun to learn new games. Not everybody does, but that's one of the big reasons I'm here, is to learn as many games as I can.
I love learning new games. I love running games for the first time when I've only read like maybe a third of the rules, and we're just going to figure it out and play. I just never lost that willingness to fail miserably in front of the people I'm playing with. It's fun. I don't know that I have anything that's like really high on the gotta play this list.
That maybe eventually like.
There's this game that I'm really looking forward to the right opportunity to play, and it's called The Excellence. It's the Excellent Princess RPG, where everyone is a princess of some sort, and you have a magical creature that's your companion, and it's like so incredibly cool.
Okay, I'm adding this to my wish list. That sounds amazing.
It's got the simplest game system I've ever seen. Your character class, which is like what kind of princess are you? Are you a magical princess? Are you a brave princess? Something like that. Mm-hmm. That determines what die you roll, and you just have one die. You can share a whole set of polyhedrals with your group, and everybody has just their one die, and it's tremendous. But really cool game that I could see doing like an Adventure Time kind of vibe really incredibly well, and I desperately want to play this game, and I keep bringing it to like these microcons that my friends and I have, and I very nearly got a group of people to play it at ShimCon at Doug Kovacs' house back in February, but at the last minute we decided all to play one game instead of having two separate ones going. So that's something I've been kind of dying to play because it looks really neat, or run rather.
Yeah, I don't like Everway, Nobilis, One Ring, Twilight 2000. There's a bunch of them. Red Markets. There's a bunch of them that are kind of
Market. Like. Hell yeah! Over the Edge. That's one I want to play. I want to run. I want to run Over the Edge. That game is dope.
I've done a little bit with it, but it steers against the way I tend to run things, where like you almost have a lot of the. Like, you're introducing the players to the island and to all the conspiracies, so you kind of have to have a lot more set than I normally prefer. But I do want to do some stuff with it.
I'm a big William S. Burroughs fan, so that game just like really like hits a vein. There's the Burroughs spot.
Yeah. I want to use the card game and then pull out some characters, and once in a while do like a game of the card game to see how things shift on the island. Sure. Mo, what's yours?
So physically that I have in my hands right now is Aegon by Sean Nintner and John Harper. Yeah. Just because it has like this really cool like resolution system where you add a d6 to I don't know exactly what it was exactly, but you get like divine favor. It's basically set up to be like, you know, Greek mythos sort of style game, and you're like on epic adventures and stuff, and it seems pretty cool. I'm going with systems I haven't ran games on because like it's PTA. Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah. Another one is Heckin' Good Doggos. They're basically you're just running a game for a bunch of good pepperonis.
I cocked my head at a D6.
Yes.
It helps you locate where the sound is coming from. That's why
Psychic Trash Detective seems up your alley.
Yeah, and also let's see, what was the other one? Damn the Man, Save the Music is another one that I think I'd be really good
I
at.
have that one. That one looks so much fun.
Visigoths versus Molgoths is another one that I was thinking about. I played that, so it doesn't count. Played that, so it doesn't count.
Mo, you don't need to do the whole list.
Surprising number of the books in this room. You know, it's hard to find something that I hadn't actually run.
Yeah. There's this one game that's Kitchen Contest, where basically you're playing, you're running like a reality show cooking competition.
Oh no!
Yeah. What?
I've been toying with this hack of Blades in the Dark. I'm calling Forks in the Dark, and it's high stakes Iron Chef style food battles for in what I'm describing as a gastrarchy.
Yeah. I'll send you the information later about this one, so you can like see. But another thing is like I said before, different genres or same genres in different games have different outcomes and like how they do. So like, if people are like,
I mean,
oh, that
even
game's
the
not even
same
made,
genre
it
and
hasn't.
like the same
Yeah.
system can work differently because like Beam Saber and Disaster Wing, I think, are wildly different games, and they're both Forged in the Dark mech games.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was like, yeah, it's Beam Saber. I didn't know about the other one. Actually, no, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, it's from a couple of Drakes. They also did Disaster Peace. They're apparently you can run them together, so you can run magical girls and mechs in the same game, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's not a one that I can run. It's like a GMless game, but it's The Way You Make Me Feel, which is a game that's inspired by the Make Me Feel by Janelle Monáe's on their computer song.
Ooh.
Basically, it's a 3-player game where you basically use tarot cards to define the people around you and then yourself, and y'all go out to a bar and y'all talk about. It's a GMless storytelling game about relationships, sexuality, and perceptions of them.
I'm
So-
very sold on this game.
It's
got
very-
Janelle
very-
Monáe. It's got tarot.
Yeah, I'll send you the info for that too later.
Thank you. All right, so why don't we go ahead and sign off? Michael, start us off. Let people know where they can find you and all that stuff.
I am Michael, Improv GM, just about everywhere. And Sunday nights we have our Masks game at 7 p.m. Central.
Mhm.
All right, Adam, where can people find you?
Hey, yeah. So the best place to find me right now is probably, probably TikTok at DSR Adam. I'm not doing any streaming or anything like that. That isn't Titterpig Academy. I'll tell you right now. At least for the time being.
All right, Mo, where can people find you? Other than
Hey,
everywhere, you're in every podcast.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm all over the internet at Saturday Bezos. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm sorry I don't ever use it, but I'm still there. I'm also on Hive and Mastodon, but I also don't use those. They exist. I just take the handle and just like hold on to it, I guess. I don't know. I'm most active on TikTok and Twitter. But yeah, I like Michael. I am in his game and I play Mask and I play a better Nightwing and our less violent Red Hood. One of the two. Yeah, I actually had a podcast. So if you are interested in PBTA games, I actually have a podcast on indefinite hiatus called Powered by the Players that you can listen to, and it has PBTA games in it. And I ran all the games. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
All right, and I am penning the
That's all.
scroach on just about every platform. I'm on Mastodon. I'm on TikTok, and mostly TikTok, Twitter, and here on YouTube. But you can also find me on Mastodon and Instagram, but I don't use those a ton.
And we haven't even talked about Titterpig Academy.
And we should mention Titterpig Academy. Yeah, so Titterpig Academy is a Discord that we started in order to teach people about role-playing games, which is why we're doing like these intro streams and all that stuff. If someone wants to put a link in the chat, it is just, you can just join it. It's a public Discord. It is run by me, inexplicably. I'm in charge, but staffed also by these wonderful people that have joined me today, and a lot.
And I'm running
like,
this Saturday. If Dungeon Crawl Classics sounds like your thing, I'm running it this Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Go to
yeah,
Academy
that's
to learn
that's
more.
a great point. Like I'm running Cortex Strange Towns, which is a Cortex hack. It's one of the spotlights. It's one of the spotlights that was done in the Kickstarter, and it's inspired by like Twin Peaks and X-Files and Stranger Things, and it's about a small town where weird supernatural things are happening. I'm really looking forward to it. It's actually the first game that I will be running in Titterpig Academy because I was
Finally.
busy. How dare you. I was busy
Finally.
promoting it and setting up
guess.
streams and all this sort of stuff. But I'm finally getting around to it.
And I'm running Siron, which is a Megway and Vincent Baker game that's based around a one-shot. It's also a D6 system, but it's a D6 pool system where you play as superpower folks who have amnesia. And you start pretty much at the beginning and you don't remember much, and you learn things as you go as you're away from people from chasing you. And Yeah, it's good. So
It sounds really cool, and we've got games running every week. A lot of weeks we have multiple games, so if those games in particular don't interest you, join anyway. We've got a lot of games running, and there's a lot of people there to also just answer questions about GMing, about games, making game recommendations. It's a great place to hang out. All right, so
I
think that ends our sign off.
Michael, you're not running anything in there right now, right? Just because we said we're running stuff.
I just got the fall play, and then our classes are up this week, so I've been busy. Spring break will be a time to rest and think about putting some stuff up.
I was just making sure that we didn't forget you.
Yeah,
'cause
I knew Michael wasn't running any games currently. That's why I didn't call him out
Things
on it.
been busy.
No, I get that. You do
All
a
right.
lot. But
Have a good
yes.
night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.